So after doing my perfect scene video for The Odyssey, I had a few comments asking for breakdowns on some of the other scenes from the film as well. The Circe scene is one of those examples, and I think it's interesting to think about how director Christopher Nolan adapted scenes like this in his adaptation. So in this video essay, I'm going to be breaking down the Circe scene from the film, discussing a lot of the details within the full scene, how it compares to Homer's epic poem, and everything we know surrounding how Nolan filmed it for his movie. Before I get into it though, if you want to keep up to date on any of my content surrounding the work of Christopher Nolan, then don't forget to support this upload by giving it a like rating, subscribing to the channel, and turning on your notifications. But without further ado, let's dive into the Circe scene from Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey. So the Circe sequence in Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey arrives at a crucial moment in the film, right when Odysseus' crew is becoming more fractured and morally compromised. And Nolan stages the encounter as a descent into a kind of earthy nightmare. The scene begins with Odysseus and his men arriving on Circe's island, with the sound design and score already hinting at something unnatural. It features the actual voice of Samantha Morton's Circe with an unsettling blend of raw electronics, warped acoustics, and intimate vocal textures. Odysseus separates from his men as tensions grow between them, and his men reach Circe's dwelling. The exterior scenes for her windswept refuge were filmed at the ruins of Finlater Castle in Aberdeen, Scotland, and Nolan avoided using any overly grand and mythological architecture, instead opting for the construction of a hand-built hut, adding to the idea behind Circe using her hands to shape his men into pigs. In the scene, she comes in contact with them already inside her hut and appears scared at their intrusion. Himesh Patel's Eurylochus says that they won't harm her, and she offers them her food, saying that she has lots of it. She tells them to take off their armor, and while outside, they spot other armor scattered along the grass, already creating a sense that something isn't quite right. But because they are starving and suspect that nothing can be wrong with having some of her food, they accept the offering. And while they are all sat around the table scoffing away at the food, the transformation begins. Nolan makes it clear that this isn't just magic in the traditional mythological sense, as we get a full-on body horror moment depicted on screen. Circe moves among the men, touching their faces and shoulders, with each contact triggering a grotesque physical shift. Nolan's cinematographer Hoyte van Hoytema shoots these moments in tight, almost claustrophobic close-ups, with the camera never lingering long enough to make the transformation feel like a special effects showcase. It feels chaotic, fragmented, and disturbingly intimate. Circe's expression also never changes as she watches them with the calm of someone exposing a truth rather than inflicting a curse. It's a transformation that has stayed vivid for thousands of years because it speaks to a primal terror in the idea of losing control over your identity while still being conscious inside a body that no longer feels like your own. The camera forces us to witness the stages of the change and familiar human faces warping into something else. It's not just a spell, as it's a physical unraveling, and Nolan makes sure that the audience feels that. The physical distortion becomes inseparable from the deeper fear underneath it in the erosion of their identity. That choice turns a legendary episode from Greek mythology into one of the most disturbing sequences in a film this year. And again, it's not because of spectacle, but because Nolan makes viewers experience the transformation as a psychological collapse as much as a bodily one. The implication, as Circe reveals in her speech to Odysseus, is that she isn't just turning them into pigs, she's revealing the pigs that they already were. And this brings us to that conversation with Odysseus during the second half of the scene, alongside some of the main changes to the moment in Homer's epic poem. Unlike the poem, Eurylochus doesn't escape that previously mentioned transformation sequence, and Odysseus just learns of what has happened to the rest of his men by going to Circe and seeing signs that something has happened there. There's also no mention or appearance of Hermes during all of this, as in the poem, Hermes gives Odysseus the magical herb moly. It's a divine safeguard that allows him to confront Circe without being transformed. The moment is almost playful, with Odysseus threatening Circe until she agrees to restore his men. Nolan just removes Hermes entirely, and there is no divine intervention, no magical herb, or no external protection. Something to further note is that the addition of the crow featured in the scene between Odysseus and Circe is referring to an emotional subplot we learn about in the film, where Circe shares that she transformed her own sister into a crow after a betrayal. And then there's also Circe's signature magic, which involves turning men who offend her or her nymphs into swine, wolves and lions, or transforming other nymphs into monsters. There's a reference to this in the film as Odysseus spots a lion walking up to meet Circe. Nolan then frames Odysseus' confrontation with Circe as a psychological standoff. When Odysseus threatens to kill the crow, which again is her turned sister, she reminds him that his men have carried their brutality with them ever since Troy, thinking that they might do something similar to her. But Odysseus bargains with her to have his men turned back, making her believe that they just want to go home and have had enough of all the brutality. And on top of letting them go, she gives Odysseus a bit more help by instructing him that before he goes back to Ithaca, he and his men must sail to Hades, and Odysseus himself must seek the spirit of Tiresias. There are other ways in which Nolan's interpretation of the Circe episode diverges from Homer's poem. Circe is a sorceress, a daughter of Helios, and her transformation of Odysseus' men into pigs is a literal spellcast through enchanted food and drink. Homer's poem treats this moment as another supernatural obstacle on Odysseus' long journey home. Nolan, however, with his film, goes for a more psychological allegory. Nolan's Circe exposes his men, and the transformation scene focuses more on her trying to reveal their inner nature. So in Homer, the men are victims of Circe's power, whereas in Nolan's adaptation, they are essentially victims of their own moral decay. And the portrayal of Circe herself is radically different too. Homer's Circe is seductive, luxurious, and almost domestic in her hospitality. She welcomes Odysseus into her home, offers him food and rest, and eventually becomes his lover for a full year. Her power is intertwined with temptation and comfort. Nolan's Circe, however, is more earthy and unsettling, and while she doesn't seduce them, she studies him and his men. She ends up offering a form of judgment. This shift removes the romantic and erotic dimension to the scene entirely, replacing it with something more confrontational. The encounter essentially becomes a turning point in the film's moral arc and not another detour. Nolan attempts to use the Circe moment to deepen the film's critique of Odysseus' leadership and the lingering trauma of war, whereas Homer uses it more to showcase Odysseus' cleverness and divine favour. Coming now to the filming of this sequence, while all the tricks behind the scene haven't been revealed, some interviews have given us a much better idea of the approaches they used to bring this moment to life in the film. In her interview with Vanity Fair, Samantha Morton explained that the entire transformation sequence was built from physical, hands-on filmmaking rather than digital trickery. She said that everything is real and in camera, and that's movie magic. There's always been ways that movie magic can deceive us in a beautiful way. So her comments confirm that Nolan approached the scene with the same philosophy that defines much of his work in grounding the impossible in something tangible so the audience feels the weight of every moment. Morton also hinted at how the team thought about the sequence by comparing it to puppetry and live performance instead of traditional visual effects. She said, "I love going to puppet theatres, it's not very long before you forget you're dealing with a puppet." So this is a revealing comparison from her because it tells us that they used puppets in some of the shots to capture the physicality of the moment we see on screen. Now for me, the best practical effects rely on a kind of shared imagination between both the filmmakers and the audience who's watching the film. And what I mean by that is that viewers understand on some level that what they're seeing on screen is artificial, yet in some way the physical craftsmanship encourages them to stop analysing the mechanics and simply fall into the illusion. That's exactly how Circe's moments work on screen in this sequence, as the moment feels both uncanny and impossible, but also strangely real because it's happening right there in front of the camera. Morton knew that her performance had to support that illusion just as much as the prosthetics and puppetry surrounding her. She wasn't just reacting to the effects as she was helping sell them. She said in her interview, "I had to make it believable that I was Circe." Her stillness, her precision, and the way she interacts with the men during their transformation all contribute to the sense that Circe is guiding the process, shaping it with her hands. The practical effects provide the physical distortion, and my presence gives the moment its eerie authority. So it seems as though almost every moment in this Circe scene was built through puppets, prosthetics, animatronics, and clever editing, rather than computer-generated transformations. And again, this even extends to the designing of the set, as the crew constructed an entire practical environment for Circe's hut, a location that acts as a somewhat extension of a place shaped by the character herself. The transformations of Odysseus's men were then achieved through an intricate combination of prosthetic appliances and partial puppetry. And instead of relying on full-body CGI morphing, Nolan used layered prosthetics that could be swapped out between takes. The makeup team could design multiple stages of the transformation, whether it be facial distortions, exaggerated jaw structures, or partial snouts, each designed so that Nolan could shoot the progression in fragments. And I'm guessing that for the more extreme moments, the team built animatronic facial rigs, allowing for shots like the one with the pig ears. The director has always preferred mechanical techniques over digital smoothness, and I think that the Circe scene is a showcase of that philosophy once again. Nolan and his cinematographer Hoyte van Hoytema used dim light and naturalistic illumination to help hide some of this practical work in a clever way. The hut was lit almost entirely with practical sources, allowing the puppets and prosthetics to blend seamlessly with the actors' real skin. Nolan also preferred fragmented cuts in the editing, creating a rhythm that made the entire scene feel chaotic. The editing mirrors the psychological shift in the scene, as we get a sense of a calm observation from Circe as she turns Odysseus's men, but then a frantic distortion of shots for the men themselves. Now, a lot of people, including myself, have pointed out that The Odyssey demonstrates that director Christopher Nolan already has the instincts that define filmmakers in the horror genre. He understands that real horror doesn't come from over-loud jump scares or throwing oversized monsters at the audience. It comes from tension, from holding back, and from making viewers believe that something impossible can unfold right in front of them. And Circe's transformation sequence works at capturing that feeling in different ways. The practical effects give the moment a physical and uncomfortable texture, and Samantha Morton's performance sells her role without ever tipping too much into exaggeration. It's an incredibly assured piece of filmmaking, one that turns a famous moment from Greek mythology into something genuinely nightmarish. Many have spent years wondering what a true Christopher Nolan horror film might look like, and after watching this scene executed the way it was in the film, it will probably leave you wanting to see a full-length horror film from him. But that was my video discussing the Circe scene from Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey. What do you think towards how the director adapted this scene, and is it one of your favourite scenes from Nolan's latest film? For much more videos and breakdowns, then subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like, rating, and follow me on social media via the links in the description. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've been Cortex, and as always, make some noise.